just gonna nose this whiskey.
And that's how we're gonna come into the show, guys. Tom's nose and whiskey. I'm just gonna go ahead and we're just gonna.
Yeah, it must be a day ending in Y around here.
Welcome to the Metal Lab, folks. Thanks for joining us today. I'm joined this week by Mr. Tom Kerr.
Hello, everyone.
And Mr. Jay Solomon.
Hello.
And let's get right into it, guys. How's your week been? I'll start with you, Tom.
It's been good. My only Heroclix thing has come today, but it was super fun. Jay informed me yesterday there was a tournament today that I had forgotten about or missed out on, which was a 400-point Rock Limited style practice for next week's league event. And so I threw together a couple teams and picked up Jay. We went down, played. I didn't do terribly well in the actual tournament itself. I went 1-2. And then I had an exhibition game against the guy who won the tournament and won that game. So who knows what to say about that? Exactly. But it was good, and it was also good because of the fact that it was a team. I feel like the team was actually better than I played it, and so this feeds into the whole. Practice makes your team better. Practice makes you better at playing your team too. Because had I gone into today with the knowledge that I came out today with, it may have gone very differently. I would have constructed it a little bit differently, and I would have deployed it significantly differently, and especially my map choices would have been different. So it's been good. It's nice to have one of those learning experience days where you don't just think, this team sucks, but rather, I have failed this team, but I can do better next time. And that was fun. I think that's the kind of thing that jazzes me up, because it means that I can play it again another time and see if I can learn from my mistakes. And that's great.
All right. Awesome. Jay?
Very similar experience. I am going to tweak the team and hopefully do better the next time I play it, and I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. I myself actually managed to squeeze a game of Heroclix in my hectic work schedule this week. In fact, it was on Saturday or Friday. Friday. I called ahead to Amber, and I was like, Amber, build 2 teams. The only stipulation is my team must contain the Merc with a Mouth Deadpool.
Nice.
He's lovingly called the Planeswalker Deadpool.
Yes.
He's pretty
character.
good. The title character, yes. I'm going to stop calling it the Planeswalker and just
agree.
go with the Heroclix wording and go title character. He's pretty good. And I kind of want to see the game go a different way with a little bit more focus on our builds. Amber gave me a kind of a Deadpool-y focused, funny kind of thing. Amber went with a 90s X-Force team, and I ended up winning, but not walking all over her. The Deadpool's ability to heal really started to mount up, but you also have to kind of meter that with making sure you're making attacks at all times. If he had sidestep, I'd be a little bit safer in the game. So I'm kind of looking at that as a thing to try to get him when I play him. Overall, I was impressed with the character. I don't think he's broken because, damn, if Amber would have hit some of those attacks, he takes all that damage.
He does, but he's also 8 clicks deep, so he can take some damage without dying.
Absolutely. He can take some damage. He can afford some damage if you absolutely must do certain things with his title ability. One thing I was thinking of on one turn was I had at least 2 of the... I got to 6 tokens at the end of the game when all I was doing was healing Deadpool every time Amber hit him.
Right.
And then, I'd actually get a couple turns of healing in some cases and some attacks in. But I did frequently use the +1 and the -2 ability, the -2 being your opponent can't increase stats. And her team had a lot of combat reflexes energy shield, which I was able to just shut down with a free action. So I like him, and I think I might toss aside my shredders for Saturday and build a team. Excuse me, build a team around him. I apologize. I've been coughing all week. So I'm going to try not to cough.
Well, at the moment, you'll have limited keyword options, but I'm really, really looking forward to them errataing that, because I'm sure an errata is coming, right? Like, they can't just let it stand.
I know, I feel like X Factor Initiative is an oversight, but at the same time, are they going to reprint all the cards, or are they just going to issue the errata and hope everybody reads it and then, get the occasional confused player? I don't know.
To be fair, that is what they've done.
Sorry, go ahead, then.
Yeah, that's what they've done with previous watch lists. Was they've simply when they errata something or watch list something and make a change, they don't reprint all the cards. They just say, here's how it works now. With Proteus, they actually gave us new cards, so they could really go either way. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is the onus isn't on them to get on printing cards. If they just want to tell us, you know what, we messed up, here are what the keywords should be, and it's official, I think that's all they need to do.
Agreed. And I'd be happy with that. But also I'd be content with, them just stripping him of keywords. Who knows?
Well, there's also a difference with WizKids between an error and an errata, right? Like, they gave us new Batman cards from World's Finest. They did Proteus. Like, when there's an error, they do new cards. But if they're errataing and nerfing stuff, that's a different story with them, as we've noticed a pattern. In
this case, it is an error, but it's also an error on a double-edged card. So,
yeah,
that's expensive. Yeah,
it's the thing about it, of course, is that at the moment his only X keyword is the crappy one. It only occurred to me this weekend. Point Psylocke and the 35-point dupe. All you need to really do is throw the uncanny ATA on them, and now you can build any X-Men or X-Force team that has just a ton of handy prob in the side. And I would love to use that with that Deadpool, just to make sure those high defense values manage to soak some damage. So I would like to see new keywords, because I think he's playable, but I think that he's going to be best when you have more command of the map choice, and that really comes from theme teaming, and theme teaming at the moment is pretty difficult.
I feel like, though, that you'd be disappointed on the X-Force side of things. I feel like this is a character who'd simply get Deadpool Core and Assassin at best.
Really?
My theory was that he was supposed to have Avengers, because that was a more recent development. None of the other ones that we got had it.
I feel like this version is going to, like, one thing I'm noticing, and we'll talk about it with the Doctor Strange, is it's a little bit more core to what they are. And
interesting.
Yeah, but I think there's an oversight on Doctor Strange. But let's get into the actual previews before I speculate on what we're going to be talking about through the show. How about that?
Let's do it.
All right, and I want to talk about the first and most exciting one, Miss Riri Williams, Ironheart. She's got armor and scientist keywords. She comes in at 25 points with 4 range. She flies. She's also got a trait, Armor's Falling Apart on me. Ironheart begins the game with 1 broken armor token. When she's dealt damage, instead roll a d6 that can't be rerolled. If the result is equal to or less than the number of broken tokens, she is KO'd. If not, turn her to that click number and give her another broken armor token. This can't be ignored. And then she's got various stats. Her movement circulates between sidestep and earthbound. She's got a spattering of outwit, probability control, and perplex across the dial. And I'm going to get Tom's thoughts first on Ironheart.
I think that she's great. For 25 points, it's one of the... It's hard to describe, really. I mean, it's not that hard to describe. The first time she gets shot, there's a 1 in 6 chance she'll die. If not, then the second time she gets shot, then there's a 1 in 3 chance that she'll die. If after that, there's a 1 in 2 chance that she'll die. And then, of course, the 1 starts to move off at the top of the line. Yeah. But the fact that the 25-point character has a very high probability of surviving 1 hit and may survive many hits regardless of the damage dealt. That's the thing that kills me about it. Because for most characters, even if they're fairly tough, you can just do more damage and get through them. And then you've got characters like your Bizarros or your Beyonders or whatever, where you pay for more tokens and the tokens come off as they die. But even then, 25 points is the cost of 1 Orzib or whatever token. And she's almost certainly going to survive more than 1 Orzib's token worth. So she's very hard to take out, and she is just filled with useful, helpful powers. So by all means, her values also aren't that bad. So she can be sort of a tertiary or quaternary attacker. I mean, let's face it, with no real special powers to help her out, her offensive abilities are limited, but they're not awful. And she's bringing Outwit. Outwit is about to become the most valuable power in the game, and she's only 1 push away from probability control, which is arguably the other most valuable power in the game. All I can really say is that I think that she's
really. Sorry.
Let him finish. Jim.
No, I'm basically finished. I mean, I think that she's really a deal for 25 points is all I can really say. She's just a support piece, but what a support piece for 25 points, and no one really wants to target her because it's going to be real frustrating.
All right, Jay.
I was going to say she can't reliably push onto Brawl because that push will just put her on a random point in the dial.
Yeah.
True.
Other than that, I think she's not as good as some might think in the current environment where you can just have a Jakeem poison her or a Shredder can just ping her for one, and that can kill her, or just
but
put
it
on
probably
a out
won't.
where you don't want her. Yeah. But you can keep on pinging her for
25
one.
points. 25
Yeah, but
points.
then you can but you can also play the Joker for 30 points, and he has a ridiculous amount of life and also has Outwit.
Sometimes.
But she's also a sometimes, right?
Before we hum and haw about that, let's also remember we were playing 25-point Bizarros in a world with Red Lanterns.
That's true.
So, and also, she'll survive. She's got a better chance of surviving than that Bizarro did in that kind of same kind of instance where you can keep pinging with these extra abilities, but now they're focusing these abilities on her as opposed to a character who's more important. And this is only 25 points of your team. That's less than a tenth of your team. So
there's two very solid
she's
keywords
useful,
on her too.
But I don't know how useful she is going to be given the environment.
I think she's
definitely useful.
I think she's more than 25 points worth of useful, and
absolutely
that's all I need to know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to lose her on the first time she gets hit damaged all the time. That's just me. But if you get that one use of Outwit out of her and make that use of Outwit work, it's 25 points worth using. So, you also got to look to the future beyond the world where ID cards are gone. As it is, ID cards are less reliable in a post-Ultron world, right? Even the next rotation takes Ultrons out of the game. She's still capable of calling in a couple characters. She can call in the Atom, right? Yep. I think that's the only JSA character who's 25 points. Plus, she can also call the 15-point ID card. Yeah,
two versions of the Atom, but
yeah. So there's options for her, and
Jessica Jones.
Like even if she survives the first click, unreliably pulls up a support power you don't think you need at the time, it's still a support power that's really good in all three support powers that she has. So ultimately, I like her a lot, and I can see her showing up. May not necessarily be on a keyword themed team, but a 25-point throw, and I'm filling the last points with her for sure.
I also like the fact that she's not broken, because I think sometimes we get too many chases that are the must-have. She's not must-have, but I feel like if you do have her, you'll find a reason to, or an occasion to use her.
Yeah, and
which is a good balance.
I would love watching my opponent make more than one attack with way more damage than it should have to take to kill a 25-point character. Because that's any damage, right? If they throw a 4 damage attack at her, she might survive it. They throw like a 6 damage attack at her, she might survive it.
That's true.
All right. Next up, on the subject of title characters, etc. Hey, look, it's Doctor Strange, Earth Guardian,
carrying a wicked axe.
Oh yeah. My man Doctor Strange comes with the Avengers and mystical keyword and a trait that says he's a title character. We'll talk about that in a second. What you see is what you get for powers. Otherwise, on a 6-click dial at 80 points that flies with the Mystics team ability. He starts with some prob, goes into some mid-dial exploit with blades, and then some late dial blades as well with some phasing, willpower, and outwit to cap it all off. And then his title character abilities. So those of you not familiar, a title character has 2 types of abilities. A black with a plus X where it'll say plus add this many plot tokens to the character, or there's a minus X where you add and subtract that many plot tokens from the character. They'll also have a number of starting plot points. In this case, he starts with 2 plot points. So an ability that says +1, you add a plot point and then you do what happens after the text. Or if there's a subtraction, you subtract that many plot points and do what happens after the text. These actions will be free actions. You're allowed 1 title per character per team, which is kind of their own little version of the prime rule. And then there will be these book abilities that are related to using the title abilities. The first one, after clearing action tokens, if Doctor Strange Earth's Guardian activated a title character ability this turn, but didn't attack an opposing character this turn, deal him 1 unavoidable damage. This seems to be a common theme among them where after you're done everything and you've used a title ability. Now his is a little bit less restrictive because this happens after clearing action tokens. I don't think Deadpool's has that requirement.
It's the exact same wording as Deadpool.
Oh, is it? Okay, then never mind. I'm going to shut up. And then his second one, when Doctor Strange Earth Guardian is KO'd, after action is resolved, deal 2 unavoidable damage to the friendly character occupying a square closest to the square Doctor Strange Earth Guardian last occupied. So you got to be careful with these title characters. They tend to blow up. And then his +1 ability, so you add a plot token and then you modify Doctor Strange Earth Guardian or an adjacent friendly character's damage value by +1 this turn. And then his -1 ability, the Last Days of Magic. Adjacent friendly characters can use the Mystic's team ability this turn. Until your next turn. And then his -4 is a Sorcerer Supreme. For the rest of the game, as long as Doctor Strange Earth Guardian is on the map, you may re-roll an attack roll each turn. All right, Jay. What do you think of our newest title character, Doctor Strange, Earth Guardian?
He's very interesting, that's for sure. I think he might be best suited as an ID card character because that one is one of the few Marvel that's staying because it was a con, where you can call him in. He can either modify a character's damage value by +1 and then have prob himself, and then his inspiration gives prob when attacking, or call him in. He can use prob, and then he can also give adjacent friendly characters mystics in addition to that amazing inspiration. So he can really potentially be a game changer if you really need an attack to hit and you want it to hit really hard with at least 2 probs on it. But as a character, he also looks pretty decent for the points. Similar to Deadpool, he looks appropriately costed given the very harsh setback for when he gets KO'd. He's very consistently good. His damage output is either penetrating the whole time or has outwit, and that's going to be better soon. And Mystics to punish your opponent for trying to get rid of your title character is also useful. So, and that +4, it could be by itself worth playing him for if you can pull it off. So overall, just great character.
All right, Tom, what are your thoughts?
I agree with a lot of what Jay has said. I think that as an ID character, he is a very good option. I think that Jay went over that in some detail. And although he doesn't have that great depth of dial that Deadpool has for his title character, the +4, you can get there if you've got some source of being able to heal him. Then and your team is not in a big hurry, then you're going to force your opponent to be in a big hurry as soon as he hits the map and starts racking up tokens. Again, as long as there's some way they have to heal him, because that +4 would be pretty amazing if you can get there. But you don't need it. I love powers on characters that you don't need them to work in order for the character to be decent. And for 80 points, he's got high enough values, particularly in the attack and defense areas, that I'm not sweating about it if I can't get +4. It's cool to be able to give mystics to all of my allies or to be able to boost up their defenses. Otherwise, he's very hard to shoot. So by all means, let him stick back and try to rack up some plot points while your opponent tries to get up in his face. And if your opponent gets right up in his face to get around that ESD, then they may be surprised to discover a whole lot of blades and combat reflexes, along with exploit for that matter, in the mid dial. And I just think he's decent for 80 points. And, Mystic's team ability, 7 range. The only thing I really miss is 1 more click of life. But for 80 points, I have no cause to complain. I think Deadpool's a little better if we're comparing title characters because, I don't know, 8 clicks of life is just so great. But I still like a lot of what Doctor Strange is bringing to the table. And the fact that he can get an ability that is not prob control, but still a reroll power, so that he can stack it with his existing prob control, that's pretty nice.
I think one of the things about Doctor Strange that makes him a little bit more expensive and slightly softer is the fact that he makes a team better, whereas Deadpool's a little bit more focused on himself, right? So even Doctor Strange's +1 ability will give +1 damage to an adjacent friendly character or himself. So, you can use that on a turn where you're double tokened and make somebody else still able to do some damage. And granted, he's going to take some in return for that. It's still going to be pretty effective in that matter. As well, when you go -1, and it's only -1, not -2. He gives all friendly characters adjacent to him the Mystics team ability, thus punishing you should you decide to energy explode my clumped together team. So,
Sure.
I have 6 guys all next to each other. Energy explode me. I dare you. And then, of course, if you do happen to get to the -4, one reroll that isn't a prob is very, very potent. And I noticed this when I was using Rocket Raccoon in my police team, where he was able in the same action even use his personal reroll, which is not probability control, and then use his theme team probability control. So I think overall there's a big team element to Doctor Strange, which is what gives him the higher cost, because he's making not just himself, not only is he pretty good, but he's making your team better over where Deadpool is a little bit more focused on the offensive level of things, right?
He must be practicing. Because he's making your team better.
I see what you did there. I see what you did. Hit the mute button just in time on that.
I just want to throw one thing in about him and Deadpool. So I've noticed a lot of people confused about this recently, about the wording on the negative thing, where if they do the title ability but don't make an attack, it says after clearing action tokens, which means during the phase of your turn.
Oh yeah,
So
because
it doesn't
that's actually part of your turn.
Yeah, that applies every turn, not just if they personally cleared action tokens or not. It's a turn phase, basically.
Yeah.
There's also something I just want to ask about these title characters, because maybe I'm dumb, or maybe they're dumb, and I want to know which one it is. Why do we need an open book and a closed book and an upside down book and a black book and a white book? Like, couldn't it just be plus something, minus something?
They needed an icon.
Why do we need books? I think they're
We
dumb. I
already
think
have
the icons are dumb.
icons.
Oh,
We already
that
have
was-
icons in this game, so it goes. It's,
Like, that was the thing that confused me the most. When they first came out, I was like, so why is there a book? Like, what does a book have to do? Why is this one white? Why is it black? I don't care. What's going on with the book? It was the thing that made me not want it. And then when I actually saw it, I'm like, oh, I see. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Remember how I said they completely ripped off a mechanic from Magic the Gathering?
Yes.
I want you to. I want to show you just on a single card what this mechanic looks like, and why I also don't disagree with your assessment here. So I'm going to pull this up here. If you look at, there is a kind of an icon to it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the icon is an arrow up or an arrow down, and
Yeah, that makes sense.
very clearly shows a +1 or a -1 or a -6. The closed open book thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
I honestly, when it comes to like arrows up and down, I can see why they would want to replace that with a different colored book faced in a different direction. That makes more sense. Oh, Christ.
Yeah. Again, it's the whole thing of you're trying to rip off without getting sued.
Yeah, the book is obviously going to be the difference maker. It couldn't be Planeswalker. This is a book.
Yeah. All right. So throughout the week, just a heads up, guys, check out WizKid's YouTube. Scott Porter has done his unboxing. He has gone over some of the cool stuff that's in there. His big pull was, of course, the Chase Hawkeye, which allows you to use Running Shot, and if you hit, use Running Shot again. And if you hit, use Running Shot again. And he also happens to have some Precision Strike when he does that. Damage depletion modifier, of course, brings you down to 1 damage, but whatever. So that's been a lot of the talk, along with just what's been in there, what people are excited for. I don't know, Tom, have you had a chance to watch the videos?
No. I've been watching the dials as they've been posting them on the realms, but I really haven't been watching the videos themselves.
All right. But from watching what you've seen on the realms developing and what's in the set, is there anything that particularly excites you? And also, before we say, did you know that somebody showed off a picture of the Totally Awesome Hulk yet?
The dial's up.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I did know that. And that's, I mean, hey, a Hulk without wit is always a cool thing.
Still
And
not
so,
my Hulk.
no, he's not. And like, I remember one of the first things that I remember from you, Jason, before I was on this channel. I remember watching an old Metafix episode. One of the most iconic moments of your life was when you said, if you want to play seriously, competitively, here's what you have to do. And you pulled a piece off its base, and you said, this is what you care about.
Oh, God. Metagame 101. I might have to redo that.
That was like 2 years ago or something, but it still stands out to me. And it's true that when you're thinking about things from a competitive perspective, you try to keep that in mind. But I really dislike Amadeus Cho as the Hulk. Like, I really think he's real annoying, and I really don't like the comic. So it's difficult for me to get excited about that, even if his name is Hulk. Honestly,
there's a World Breaker in this set, right?
Yeah, I know. My fingers, toes, and all other parts of my anatomy that will cross are crossed in anticipation of that. In terms of other things, I must say the set's not looking as good as I was hoping it would be. In the early goings, we were seeing a bunch of low point guys, but they were a bunch of guys that feel like they should have been low points, and I thought, oh, this is a good starter. But now we've been getting a lot of other things where it just seems like they've given everybody the old school JSA treatment, but in a lot of ways even less interesting. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm not excited about. There are things I am excited about. Oddly enough, one of them is one of the lowest point characters in the whole thing, which is Jessica Jones, because at 15 points, she's super good for 15 points. And I feel like I'm a broken record on this episode because I keep saying, like, but for the points. And I think that that's maybe an old school way of thinking that for the last few years, since we've seen a rash of more expensive characters, almost unstopped from Hammer of Thor through to fairly recently, where things have gone up and down on averages, but we've seen very few pieces below 50 points that were really worth talking about, except for a few really exceptional ones. Now it feels like that low end is being heavily beefed out, and we are going to have to drop out the whole for the points bit of our parlance, because there are a lot of characters that are decent for the points now. But does that make them decent for the game? Not necessarily. But Jessica Jones, I think, could be, because I think that she's pretty cool, and I love the fact she can just give herself a permanent 10 attack, 15 points, 4 clicks with toughness. That's pretty good. And Purple Man, perhaps ironically, is also pretty decent. But we'll talk more about it, I'm sure, in the next few weeks, especially once the time comes to our primer on the whole set, when more has been revealed, when more has been released. As yet, I wish I was feeling more excited about the set, but there are still a few things I'm excited for, and I am a sucker for Marvel, and there are several Hulks in the set, and I love the Hulk, so I'm going to have to buy it all.
So far, I know 3. 3 at least, because there's an 80.1 in the common slot. There's the Amadeus Cho Super Rare and the Chase World Breaker.
There's another one.
And there's a Grey Hulk at the Uncommons.
Yeah.
And he's pretty good. Like, honestly, the common and the uncommon are pretty good. If only they had a shifting focus mechanic, I'd be all about it, but they don't.
Oh, good, because you're going to like one of the questions that's in the chat right now. So, all right, Jay, what are your thoughts going into the set? What's your anticipated piece? What are your overall takeaways?
There's a lot of stuff in this set that's more surprising, so it wasn't really what I was expecting as much. Like, I am also hoping for a good World Breaker, because I've been lucky and able to collect the rare Hulks. Like, I played Indestructible the other day, and it was, of course, great fun, and I love the end. I'm hoping for a good version of the World Breaker. But as far as what we've seen, I do like that Purple Man a fair amount, although Thunderbolts is not the most playable, unfortunately.
I disagree.
It's a whole. Your opinion, though. I like them for casual, but I don't know about for competitive. But I feel like we're still missing the dials that are going to bump this set's competitive stuff up to the normal numbers, as Jason showed us. But I guess if I had to pick one character, the shifting focus Elektra, who attacks everybody adjacent and has blades, is cool. Just nuts.
Yeah.
It's just, 11 attack. She can be sidestepped in from the other one. This blades everybody next to her for 50 points. That's just all sorts of nutty. I'm looking forward to the rest of the shifting focus Doctor Stranges, because I feel like there has to be at least one more, because you've only gotten 3 so far.
Yeah, there has to be at least one playable one.
I didn't say that. You said that.
All right, I gotta throw this in there. I don't know. I probably haven't discussed with you guys my recent comic book reading habits, But my favorite comic books on the market right now are Infamous Iron Man, doesn't matter to the conversation. Power Man and Iron Fist. Iron Fist. Luke Cage. Jessica Jones. The upcoming Defenders comic, which is coming out next month, which consists of the 4 characters from the Defenders book. Did they make this set for me? We know I love the Hulk, right?
That's true. But do you love this? But do you love the set?
I do, for a number of reasons. One of which is that there's a ton of shifting focus, and I cannot stop pushing the shifting focus mechanic for a number of reasons. One, if you're going to shove the resources aside, it increases the number of figures I'm bringing to a tournament of my collection, which is not a bad thing, because as I went over the numbers with Jay previously, we are playing with 10% of the game. Now, if I bring up if we have at least one shifting focus character, that means I'm bringing all of them for the most part and increasing the numbers. I think that's positive for the game. Now, are they necessarily great? No. It's also coming in at a rough time where we're not going to see the abandonment of Nick Fury and ID cards until next rotation. So this rotation this year, we still have that. And what's going to hurt is right now if we look with the blinders on and don't look to that post future where these problems that we see now are now gone, it'll be like the Jakeem Thunderverse, we'll call it, which is basically what's going to run rampant in that universe or that rotation, right? So I'm looking at this and I'm saying a lot of positive things with what I'm seeing. I'm liking the characters that I'm getting, but I'm also seeing when they said complexity is going on the high, they neglected to mention that power is going up on the higher rarities. And that scares me a little.
Yeah.
They throw in things like the Cable in the common slot and Deadpool to kind of throw me off of their game. And things like Madcap kind of throw it off. It's like, but at the same time, it's not necessarily throwing me off. I'm catching on. I'm seeing what they're doing. When I see figures like Ironheart at 25 points in the chase slot, I'm watching. Characters like the Daredevil used to be things that got slotted into the rare slot, maybe occasionally a super rare slot. That's moved up to chase. So my concern is when they said complexity is going up, does that mean strength? Not 100% yet. It's not there yet. But they got to be careful on that because, on dial strength doesn't necessarily mean non-strength. Reading the traits, reading the powers kind of makes that the whole. As a set itself, I like the idea of getting Iron Fist and Luke Cage. I don't like the Luke Cage we're getting, but I'm never going to be happy in game with a Luke Cage. I'm just going to be happy with comic accuracy of what they try to do with him. It's impossible to be happy with some characters, and I accept that. But I am excited for the mechanics in the set. I'm excited to see some of the characters in the set. I'm also excited to notice that there's not necessarily prime slots being taken up in the set. Are we done with primes? I don't know. Are title characters are new primes? I don't know either.
Is that true? There are no primes? I hadn't even noticed.
There have been no A dials so far.
Scott Porter noted there is no A dials. And even in the common slot, he would have had to at least notice 1 in 1 brick, I'm sure, if there was a prime. And then recently, there was a conversation on the internet that was had where it's like, they're not listing primes in the set, or that there is primes in the set. And then somebody later on said, yes, there is. And then the next day, it seemed like that mention of primes was then removed again. So is that mechanic going away in place of the title character where we get just one version of the prime mechanic that's coming up for the future? Future sighted, I'm liking the set. And I understand that we still have to suffer a year of the Fury meta. It's just going to happen. And honestly, I'm kind of phased out in my head on what's going on in that future. I still don't like it, but I'm going to do my best in it that I can, as I always do. And I went on a tangent. I'm personally excited to see all the shifting focus characters. Doesn't matter who they are. I like them all. I want to try them all. I want to see what they do. And I can't wait to get my hands on a World Breaker Hulk and just play him. Show up one day at a 300-point tournament. Let's go.
Both Tom and I had an idea about how the End Hulk could be potentially good in the 400 environment, just randomly, because how he happens to have Battle Fury, which works in this environment, and he happens to destroy blocking.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? Maybe World Breaker will be really. Maybe. I mean,
Again,
we also talked about the fact that given that he was fighting the Illuminati, he kind of deserves an outwit proof something, and with new outwit, that becomes even more relevant. So
that I'm gonna have to hold.
Who knows how good World Breaker. Also, Hulks tend to break blocking, which is good because Alan Scott is a menace.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys overheard it or recently heard that there's like as many as you guys saw it, as many as 6 Alan Scotts on a single team.
Yep,
like,
we were there.
I can't say it was painful.
This now.
Yeah, it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Whew, excuse me. All right. Sorry, I was looking through the chat for a second. Tom,
yes.
You're mediating today, I believe.
Yes. Well, I have. I do. First of all, I wanted to make a public apology. I don't have the stats for Deadpool. I'm going to get them as soon as I can. I've been working on them throughout the week, but I just couldn't have them done for today, and so I apologize to everybody who's looking forward to those. I will absolutely get them done as soon as possible. Also, part and parcel of that will be doing the Fast Forces with it, and also doing the latest Turtle set, because I haven't done that either. So I've got a backlog to get through. I'm getting through them as best I can. I apologize for making you wait. In the meantime, I had a debate for us today. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it before, we haven't done one of these in a little while, so I should re-explain. The nature of the Heroclix debate is where I get the other, well, 2 of the other people on the show, which in this case will have to be Jason and Jay, to each argue a certain point around, usually it's around a hot button topic in Heroclix, but right now it's more just like a fun topic that I thought of, and try to argue why their perspective is the right one, their opponent's perspective is the wrong one. We take this as a sort of a debate forum whereupon everyone gets a 90-second opening argument to make, then a 60-second rebuttal to their opponent's argument, and a 30-second set of closing statements. And by all means, I encourage you who are watching and are chatting and are in the YouTube comments and everything to chime in on who you think is going to win this one, because I think it's kind of fun. Because ATAs are going away, as if, yep.
Because ATAs are going away.
Okay, what?
No, you're gonna have to go after you Skyped out on after ATA, because ATAs are going away.
Oh, okay. I also paused at that point, so it's probably.
Oh, you did. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, because ATAs are going away, with the new rules.
Okay, that time he actually Skyped out.
Oh,
one of the special prizes for people who win a nationals tournament is they get to design an ATA, and that's no longer going to be a thing. But I think that it would be cool, and I think we can all be agreed that it would be cool if WizKids still let you do something special if you are a national champion, to add something to the game. But I think that designing a figure still is the province of the world champion. So I said to these guys, I want each of you to come up with what you would pitch as what WizKids should offer to national champions moving forward. So it cannot be designing an ATA, because that's not a thing anymore. And it can't be designing a figure, because that would be too easy. And also because I think that there should be something that distinguishes it. So I asked both of these dudes to come up with an idea and then a backup idea in case the other person sniped theirs. And we're going to start with Jason. 90 seconds to Jason. And I want you to try to argue, what should a national champion be able to contribute to the game as their special prize for winning? Not designing a figure, not designing an ATA. What should it be going forward, and why is it at 90 seconds, starting now?
Well, we're going away from resources, and we're also adding something new to the game recently, equipment. I do believe that a champion of the national level should be allowed to design or at least choose a new equipment in the game, because there's enough equipment in the game that is worth kind of bringing it in as this new idea. We tried the relics are done. People seem to be really smoothing over the equipment idea. Now, granted, we have Mighty Thor coming with the weapons. Are they going to work differently? Who knows? And that might even change my mind to be like, choose a new weapon. But this equipment as an idea seems to be catching on. People are using it in a limited format. People are loving it. And I do believe that given what we know about comic books and how much just stuff people use in comic books itself, Equipment should be what a national level player should be allowed to design if it's not a full-blown character. For one as well, equipment is going to be less frequently used than, say, a figure, or less frequently pulled maybe as a character. It might even be thrown in as an OP kit, I don't know. But it's also kind of that it's not of the tier of that character is mine. It's more of the tier of, yeah, you see how you got a calculator out of that pack? That's me. I'm a national champion, and I got to make that. It's not on the level of Worlds. It's just kind of that level below, but it's still something that you can use, and we might see a lot of people use it in that sense. As well, here, WizKids can kind of meter their low point realm on that.
And there we go. Well done, sir. Well, that's a great idea. So, design your own piece of equipment. What would you design, everybody? What do you, ideas come to mind right off the bat? But let's not get into that. First of all, let's hear what Jay would counter as what Jay feels a national champion should be able to contribute to the game moving forward in 90 seconds or less. Jay, go.
I guess I was more thinking about the prizing from a game design standpoint, and in a similar fashion to what the design an ATA or design a figure, or even Jason's design an equipment idea does. Maybe you could do something a little different with what's already established. Like, maybe you have that one character that you really like who doesn't have the team ability that you want, like a defender without the defenders, or JSA without JSA. Maybe they're missing a keyword. There's something off about a character. I'm not talking about errata to change a character's powers as much, but to get the opportunity to do something to tweak a character that already exists that you do like, but has a small imperfection that you would like to alter. And that could also be seen from a PR standpoint as more of a listening to the fans sort of thing, and being able to fix characters that are otherwise really good, but just have that one little thing. But of course, not everybody's a game designer, so I'm not saying you should be able to choose a character and make them worse or nerf what they do. It's not like you got a watch list. It's more you have to improve a character potentially. Of course, there has to be some reason to it, and it has to be balanced. Like, you can't give a 12-click Undying character mystics for no reason and make them stupid.
Right.
So there has to be an element of balance to it.
Well,
but you can make a character better.
And there's your time. And I think I hear where you're coming from. And for what it's worth, they've always been policed, right? When you make a new character, then they still are looking at the people that are designing the dial, making sure that it fits within the balance of the game. I don't think any of us here would suggest that you be allowed to carte blanche just create something that will break the game. But we are now into our 60-second rebuttals, in which, Jason, you can start out by telling us, why is your idea better than Jay's? Why is Jay's idea of basically optimizing a character, we'll call it, inferior to your idea of designing a new piece of equipment? 60 seconds, go.
You know what piece of complaint I love watching and hearing from players is, and this is pure sarcasm, it is the idea of reprints and remakes and rebuilds and remodels and everything like that. And I just hate giving them an excuse. The truth of the matter is, a lot of the times we do have to trust in Heroclix and WizKids, and that they're kind of making the right design choices and kind of focusing their design choices. Where if we kind of let players, just because they won nationals, step on that, that's kind of accepting the fact that, you know, thinking that players are good at the game, like you said, doesn't necessarily make them good designers. It actually kind of makes them the worst game designers, because all they did was take that game and just kind of use it for themselves. And I can't tell you how frequently it happens where, you know, you want to balance something and then you get an idea from a pro player and then he abuses that idea. But ultimately, changing something that's already there, don't broke what's already kind of there, or don't risk breaking it. Just kind of stick to what we have.
There we go. Strong words. But Jay, you can defend yourself, or you can choose to attack the idea of Jason's suggesting the idea of designing a piece of equipment. You got 60 seconds to stand your ground. What are you going to do? Well, let's hear it.
I'm going to argue that being able to design a game element like that sort of, like an equipment, is actually potentially way more harmful to a healthy game environment than designing a character, because let's say you have a low point support piece and it's really good, like Scarlet Witch. Who ends up being on a lot of the teams? That support character. It's not that necessarily the high point characters are the ones that are reused. but it's the low point ones. It's the small things that you can add on to a team to make other characters better. If you let a player make a 10-point equipment that can make every character better, that can eventually have much more of a ramification than designing something of a character or even a smaller game element like an ATA, where that game the equipment can go on anybody as long as they are standard. So that's most characters.
Yep, and that is also basically 60 seconds. All right, well done. Now, we're going to 30 seconds each on the clock for your closing arguments. You can take this however you wish to do it. And by all means, as I said, I'm not here to arbitrate. I'm just here to sort of provide the forum. So by all means, those of you who want to chime in on our comment section in the chat and so forward, please don't hesitate to do so, because we'd love to hear what you think and why you think both of them are wrong, or maybe both of them are right. Who knows? It could go either way. First of all, though, 30 seconds on the clock for Jason to give his final argument for why designing a piece of equipment is the right thing for your national champion.
WizKids has made one mistake when it comes to overseeing the design made by a player, and that has been Nightcrawler. Since then, not a single designed piece has gone over the meter or gone crazy in the game. Some of them have been used, but they're not necessarily broken in any sense. And I think that allowing something as small as equipment, which generally they'll turn you to say give them one ability or one thing or maybe two small things, is enough. And I think that's enough for a national champion as well, because you did win. You got to have your taste in the game.
There we go. Well done. Jay, your final statement on why the right choice is optimizing a character. Go.
Considering that the game is based on source material, and you're going to want to be having your characters that you like perform as well or as similarly as they should to their original version. If you have a character that is good or will be better with a tweak, a small tweak, not an unbalanced tweak. Game designers would have to have a say, of course. You can make that character just a little bit better for yourself, and you can help out everybody else who also likes that character too.
There we go. Well, thank you, guys. I think that's cool, and sometimes I wonder whether I should be arbitrating these things, but I'm happier that the internet gets to think about it. And first of all, I think those are both cool ideas. And if anyone was asking me, I think it would be cool to be able to design a map.
I was about to say Dennis Flair and Tom Kerr win the debate, because that's actually a really good idea in designing a map. One of the guys in the chat just mentioned that, like, oh yeah, maps.
But to be fair, if there's any one plea that I can make to the world at large, it's don't let the removal of ATAs mean that the national champions just don't get a value. Yeah, when you win these big things, then getting all that prizing and all that stuff is, all the figures, all the rare stuff. That's all well and cool, but nothing in this game is cooler than being able to imprint your mark upon it. And I hope that they'll give people the opportunity to do so. And I thank you guys for taking the time to argue your stance.
I do also. I say maps would be a great idea, and then I think about the possibility of a non-game designer making a map and how many times that's going to get sent back.
Yeah, like I wonder what the making a map would actually mean.
Well,
like, do you choose a theme and then give some general guidelines, and then the map designer goes and does it, or would you get to the point of saying, "Here's where I want patches of hindering"? Or it's a whole thing, and I'm sure that we would never be able to find out what that actual process would be. Non-disclosure agreements being what they are.
Was it 18 by 24 is a map or something like that?
You mean the actual ones that we play on? It's a 16 by 24.
16 by 24. So, and because I've been doing math all day, I don't want to do it in my head. They have to make 384 squares of the game. I don't want that in the hands of a player.
I believe in it.
I'm not gonna lie. That's what you really have to consider when you're talking about game design. It's like it's not a map as a big scale of a thing with all that. There's 384 squares on that thing. You got to do all of that.
Well, plus the fact that if it's a competitive player and they ban the map, you've kind of just not really gained anything at all.
It'll be like Atlantis is like, oh, we forgot the stairs. Ban it.
Yeah, that's true. Considering how frequently they drop the hammer on maps, the first thing you can expect is to only play yours at home.
Yeah. And what would be worse is they make it a premium map, and then we'd all spend $25 on it, and be like, ah!
Oh, that would be. That would be the best if you made a premium map and then you got to go to all your friends and be
Yeah.
like, hey, I hear you spent $25 on my map.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. All that said, guys, I do want to remind everybody we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/madewithclicks. Honestly, I've been getting a little bit more into the channel that I got my schedule in hand. So pretty soon we're going to start readdressing the rewards for the patrons. We might bring back the action tokens. Who knows? We'll see. Get that purple-headed bugger off the screen, Tom.
He's the best.
Speaking of that purple-headed bugger, I'm bringing that up because very recently I was on the Clickstuff podcast and I brought him up in the conversation. So check them out on SoundCloud. They are Clicked Off is the podcast. I had a lot of fun talking to the guys. It is a little bit more seedy, a little bit more adult language. If you want to hear a lot of particularly racy jokes about Canadian geese and moose and some maple syrup, get me and Dan in the same conversation, and that's what happens.
Nice.
Me and David Gosselman. He's also the guy that got me drunk before I showed up on the Critical Clicks podcast and made a fool of myself about Jack Frost. But I also want to point out, my drunken prediction holds.
And for what it's worth, he led the way in that particular respect, too. It wasn't as though he was sitting back in the height of his own sobriety making you get drunk. He blazed that trail for you.
Oh yeah. Well, here's the thing: if you show me the grass towards getting drunk, I'm going. I'm gonna go play in that meadow, and I'm gonna have fun. I go 0 to drunk very quickly too. If you give me that running that sprint, I don't marathon it, man. I just go. I'm there like a flash.
Yeah, you're like a standard transmission vehicle. Yeah, we got to push you at first, but once you're running, then you're off.
Well, my big trigger in David's case was he was like, "You want a Jaeger bomb?" I was like, "I don't have shot glasses." You know what? Let's just do it in my mouth. So he handed me the Jaeger bottle. I put the Jaeger in my mouth, and I was like, "Red Bull, glug." Who needs a glass?
Indeed.
I think I broke Amber because I don't know if she witnessed this or not.
I was already drunk at that point.
Amber was already inebriated.
Yes.
Me drunk first.
That Critical Clicks was something to behold. If anyone hasn't checked it out, just when Derek wouldn't leave. Oh, it's the best.
Oh man, I'm still glad I don't have to eat Tom's shirt because then I'd have to buy a new one for him.
Yes, these were.
Somebody
this is what happens when you go to Rockbros.
Yeah, somebody is planning on playing a Jack Frost to win, and they're going to be like, "Jason, you need to eat the shirt." All right. So we're going to start with the Facebook question before we get into the chat questions. Guys in the chat, putting capital letters question before your questions gets me to see them a little easier while I'm copy pasting them out of there. But our first question comes from Mike Bockley. Oh my gosh, my cough is just trying to get under control here. Salutations, Metal Lab members. I'm sure we all enjoyed getting an advanced look at Avengers Defenders War thanks to Scott Porter. Just wanted to know, with all the lower value figures, what do you anticipate to be the average number of figures for teams moving into the new meta? Peace. All right, Tom, your thoughts while I cough.
The average number, well, Deadpool, there's still enough in the current meta that's of a higher point level, and a lot of that actually, Deadpool and X-Force didn't follow the same trend as Justice Society or Avengers Defenders Warriors. So I'm still going to say that I'm going to guess the average at about 4. Because I think there'll be some big swarmies, but there'll be a couple of 2-man armies, 3-man armies, and I think we'll probably see it settle down at around 4. But that's okay. Up until recently, I think the average has probably been sitting more at about maybe 3. It's hard to say because there are so many teams that fill it out with so many low point pieces that will drive the average down. But I think that, I guess here's what I would say more than anything else. I think on average, you're going to have more characters than actions. So plan accordingly.
All right, Jay?
It's hard to say. I'm trying to think about what's actually around now. Like, what you're going to see most often is Shaquem Faust, and that's just 2 characters. But there's also 50 points there, 50 or more points there of added stuff like resources. And as resources dwindle and we get more specialists, that means more characters. So once you have maybe a primary attacker, a secondary attacker, and 1 or 2 specialists, that 4 sounds about right. because we're losing the Pandora's box and we're losing, which could be a bit of a point sink, but it's about the cost of maybe one or two, a specialist. So you lose that. Yeah, the 4 sounds in the ballpark about right.
Yeah, I do distinctly remember back in the days of what we referred to as the pit crew, which is going to come back when resources are gone, guys. Don't fool yourselves. The pit crew will return. There would be 2 to 3 extra figures on top of making a figure great, or it would be 2 to 3 figures on top of whatever your team is doing. Ultimately, resources aren't necessarily going away. They're just being reshaped as characters again. And that's one thing to note. So it will depend on the team. The average, like Tom said, will probably sit between 3 and 4 easily, because that's just how it goes. Some of the peak at the biggest peaks of the pit crew world, it was 1 big character and 3 characters to just make him finish the game. At the most extreme, the Jason Collins method, you'd average about 8 characters all being carried by a Green Lantern, or somebody similar to. It really depends on what you're playing. That will make or break. But again, average 3 to 4 easily, especially with all the multifaceted support characters that we're starting to see. A lot of the time, value in a support character comes from multiple support powers in a single spot. Excuse me. All right, next up, Eric DeFrank. With the current state of the meta, is Colossal Retaliation viable, or has it had its day? I don't think Colossal Retaliation will ever not be done. It's always, I think it's always something to consider, especially considering they keep making it. And that is one thing that I gotta give WizKids a lot of credit with their game design lately. They make everything useful in all environments now. Like, your Colossal figure used to be a showpiece on your shelf until your buddies agreed to an 1,800-point game all against your Colossal. Nowadays, it's my Colossal is on my 300-point team as an extra little bit. So, for one, I think it's still a threatening power and a threatening ability, especially with what we have coming on the horizon with the Colossal Sinestro and his ability to stop you from attacking you nonsense boy. That's insane. But yeah, it's definitely still viable. And I think you'll see it come back in the tactics filled meta, because the rock format disallows anything bigger than a peanut base right now, which includes, of course, most Colossals with Colossal Retaliation. So that's why we're not seeing them right now. The most active game is being played in that realm. They're out there. And be aware of them, and be noteful of your attacks. Tom, do you want anything you want to add on that?
I wanted to add that Cthulhu is so heavy that I'm on my bed right at the moment. He accidentally fell over and actually cracked my phone screen. That's how heavy Cthulhu is.
Wait, did you just say Cthulhu cracked your phone screen?
Yeah, that's not a good omen. That is not a good omen.
Did you curse the old ones? I told you not to do that.
No?
Say 4 Cthulhu Photogons before you go to bed tonight, or he will kill you in your sleep.
Oh, I don't think I'll be sleeping anytime soon.
Now that tentacle little bugger hanging around.
I think you're right. I do think that with so many more options at lower points for, as Jay called them, specialists, Colossal Retaliators aren't necessarily anymore as high up the list, or at least they're not in as limited company as far as the very few points to go, let's throw something on. But they still absolutely have their place. I don't think that their day in the sun is gone. I just think that there's more competition in their slot.
Jake?
Yeah, because The Rock is a thing, and that's all the competitive play. We haven't seen them, but they are good. And the ones they're making are continually good. And we're keeping the ones that we had, so plenty of options, including the one ID card one. His ID card is still staying, so the Atom is definitely going to still be a presence. Yeah. And Thor has super boosters, so there should be more on the way. And if there's a Colossal Retaliator Groot, there is no force outside of The Rock that can stop me from playing him in every competitive game.
All right. Sorry, I'm kind of leafing through the chat there, and I got distracted by a couple funny lines in there and some questions. Guys, if you're in the chat right now, of course, big capital letters questions, and I'm going to die on you very shortly. Oh, man, I apologize. I got sick last Sunday, but I've just been coughing since. It's been really obnoxious. I'm not actually sick. I am just coughing. All right, next up, Tyler Murrin. What do you guys think of the shifting focus characters we've seen so far? Do you think it would have been better to make someone else shifting focus over someone like Wasp? Thanks, guys. So what have we seen? We've seen Punisher, we've seen Elektra, and we've seen
Vision.
And Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange, and what did you say, Jay?
Vision.
Vision
makes a lot of sense to me.
Vision makes so much sense with his
Hawkeye as well, right?
Change.
Or no, not Hawkeye.
No,
Not Hawkeye. Not Hawkeye.
Yeah, okay.
But Doctor Strange makes a ton of sense too. He's just strictly defense or offense or helping. That's what Doctor Strange does, right?
I can answer that. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. You go ahead. Amber's off screen.
What I would say in answer to that question is that I sort of do see that there are characters I would rather have seen. I mean, frankly, Wasp has a special place in my heart because I always really liked her, and so I'm happy to see her. You know, if somebody said, "Would you rather see a shifting focus Elektra or a shifting focus Hulk?" then there's no doubt I would rather have seen a shifting focus Hulk. But I suspect we still might. And similarly with Iron Man and Captain America, what it looks like they're doing with Defenders War is they're giving us more and more shifting focus with maybe fewer and fewer actual shifting focus options for them. So Superman had 4, and Batman had 4, Deadpool had 6. We may be only getting 3 for a lot of the characters in Avengers Defenders War. And if that's what they're doing, if they're going for more characters with shifting focus but fewer shifting focus options for them, I don't mind them holding off on some of the great big heavy hitters for maybe a future set or something else where they can spread that a little more evenly. So my answer to your question is yes and no. I do wish that a few of the characters that I think are more iconic could get their shifting focus treatment, but I also think that we will likely see that in due course. And in the meantime, I have no problem with seeing it on people like the Wasp or Vision, etc.
Well, the Wasp is just so endearing with it, how it's referred to as a costume change.
Yeah,
it's
very good. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
how many times has she changed costume in the comic? It's ridiculous. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, she had that one version of her in Chaos War that had a costume change for her shape change flavor text. It was adorable.
Yeah.
I don't think that they should be necessarily forcing it. I don't necessarily think that Elektra deserves it because I feel like, you know,
she pretty much has one focus.
Have all the the Deadpool version basically does what this new version does. She has reflexes, stealth, and flurry. That's fine. That's a character.
Right.
Yes, he changes his powers, changes his offense and his defense. That makes sense.
Punisher makes a ton of sense.
Oh yeah, he's picking literally different. We had that already with the Incredible Hulk one, who switched weapons.
Yeah, but now it'll be good.
Yeah, I think they haven't been at the point of forcing it yet, so I think it's still fine, and I'm looking forward to more. Especially Hulk, considering all his different personalities, and Iron Man because of all his armors. But also, not every A-lister necessarily needs it. Like Captain America, I've seen people say, but I don't think he needs it as much. I think it should be more focused on where it's needed. But I also don't want so many of them that it clogs up every slot in a set, like it seems to be in this set. So I think there's a balance that they could reach with it.
I think if they get rid of primes, they're making room.
Well, yes and no, because those were attached to another character. It was almost a free slot because it was an A and B, right?
Yeah,
same as how we had
forces a little extra thought out of the characters, and we get more use out of them. Remember, if you have all 4 primes in a set in a single game, you can only still use 1. If I have all 5 versions of a shifting focus character, I can use all 5 in a single game.
There's also, obviously in Deadpool, they had A and B versions of characters that had the same dial but a different sculpt, or at least different paint job on the same sculpt. You could maybe apply that logic in the case of some of these shifting focus characters if you wanted to. I'm not saying they should, but you could.
Yeah.
I think they should be using A and Bs more often because we see in the Nick Fury set and Guardians of the Galaxy that A's and Bs don't add up as other slots do. You have a million figures in those sets because of the A's and Bs.
Right.
And the Guardians of the Galaxy ones and the Fury ones were different dials entirely. So I think you could do that.
I'll always take more figures over fewer figures, especially at the low rarities. Yeah.
Ultimately, if you could
this set has a lot of
reduce the number of releases, I'd buy more packs throughout the year.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, also, Defenders has a lot of figures. Just what it looks like 70.
Yeah,
I think in the main set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm cool with the shifted focus we have. I will never not love this mechanic because it's a very, and it comes into the next question where Nathaniel White wants to know: do I feel that shifting focus will make turns longer, especially if someone is running multiples? No. Because it's very easy to read how each shifting focus character works. A new player will take longer, a little bit, yes. But will an experienced player in a competitive play take longer? No. Do I need the defensive version? Do I need the offense version? Do I need the range version? Do I need the close combat version? Those are your questions, right? If you know the answer to that question, you now know the shifting focus version that you need. Do I need to escape with Deadpool? I just use a teleporting one. I'm out of here. See you, peace. It's a very simple choice. Don't overthink what's going to make turns go longer. This is the most paranoid kind of questions that I keep seeing, and I don't want to. I kind of feel like I'm coming off angry, and I'm not angry, but you got to calm down on this kind of stuff.
But God,
people are not trying to stall, and if they are, it's very obvious. This is not a mechanic that's going to take turns longer. Switch, done. Like you know the one you're going to use. You just switch it. Nathaniel, you played against me. I used a shifting focus Superman. How long were my turns?
So long.
Yeah. Sorry, so long by a Jason standard. So Jason saw a 0.5 second increase in time, which meant that he had a 50% increase in the amount of time he was taking for his turns. I don't know, Tom, what do you think?
I don't know. There are so many different things that can cause turns to go long. I guess my answer would be I don't think shifting focus is going to be the big deal breaker in that argument. That's what I would say.
Yeah. All right. Jay.
I don't think the shifting focus is really going to add time to your turns ever. And in general, the rules are being changed such that rules questions are less common. So if anything, and with the new prob change, it seems that they're trying to actually make the game and turns go quicker. And the game design is not working against that. So if anything, we're doing better in that regard.
All right. So next up, KJ Foster wants to know, the new Dormammu and Loki, do you think it has potential for limited in late 2017? I love how specific he was about late 2017 when we get into the next limited format post-Rock World Cup. What do you guys think? I think everything's viable limited for at least the first week. Right? Like that seems like a pretty reasonable thing to say. Like the first week, let's see how it goes, and then after that week, it's like, okay, this was nonsense. I don't know, Tom. What do you think?
I think it's kind of cool that the way he just brings in mindless ones with all the little tricks. It's like I bring in Pogs. It's like, well, here's a mindless one. It's like I'm going to replace this character. Would you like a mindless one with that? So all that stuff is funny to me, but I don't think they're that great. I mean, unless maybe I'm missing something. But do I think that they'll be playable? Maybe. But their dial isn't super deep, and they don't have a wit protection, which is a little bit annoying for so many points and attack and damage values that are unspectacular. So they're okay, but I don't see that merely bringing a mindless one in is enough to dissuade anybody from choosing their shifting focus pieces or their Devil Dinosaur Pog type pieces, etc. I guess maybe I'm missing something about what makes them really good, but they just don't seem that great for me for the points. So they're playable certainly, but I'm not rushing out to pre-order one.
Jay?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of them in the competitive setting, just because the mindless ones have 9 attack, I think.
Yeah, 2 damage, 9 attack, 4 movement with sidestep.
And they also only come once per turn. So it's not like if your opponent calls on an ID card and uses shifting focus and brings Pogs, we get 3 of them. It's still once per turn. So,
right.
All right.
And if the top dial had the running shot instead of the stealth, different game, I would think. But with the stealth, not so much, and the lower point dial feels overcosted. So
yeah,
overall, just no thanks for me.
All right. So next up, and I love this question because I know me and Tom are going to go crazy, and we're probably going to reference the same storyline. Brandon Parker wants to know, why does an Avengers Defenders War have a shifting focus Hulk? How would you design one if you had to? Tom, I'm going to let you stew on this for a second while I pull up exactly what I think you're going to reference in your version or your thinking.
Right, don't influence me at all.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
I'm still not seeing it. Wait for it. Nice.
Yeah.
No, it's okay, but I was never as I'm an older schooler than that sometimes.
Okay, but in that series and the post series to that, it was revealed that the Hulk is but one of many manifestations of a schizophrenic brain of Bruce Banner. So that means, and they actually went into his brain at one point and just kind of did a visualization of what his brain looks like, and there was stuff as crazy as a clown Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
There are literally millions of different versions of the Hulk that you could come up with should you choose. But I wouldn't do that. Not a chance. Because there's 3 dominant versions of the Hulk at the time, and I'd probably base it on in that area of the storyline. And I'll even bring in a 4 and include Bruce Jones's nonsense if I wanted to, but I'm not going to.
No, you do not want to.
There's 3 versions you have. You have the gray teenage version of Hulk, which will be a little smarter, possibly have, I don't know, let's go back to Clobber time, perplex, perhaps?
Crafty. We'll say he's crafty.
He's crafty. He's still strong, not as strong, but he'll have something to the effect of perplex to help that, or possibly help your team, because he's kind of a gangster in Chicago at the time. He was running the Magia for a bit. Let's not kid ourselves. He's a clever one. There is the brutish Hulk, which we expect to have max damage, and Battle Fury, of course, right? Mm-hmm. That's another focus. And then, of course, we'll have our Professor Hulk, as it's been called, which was actually, it turns out to be not actually Banner's brain in the Hulk. That's another part of that story. But anyway, it's kind of a more brave, more lead the way Hulk. Powers not necessarily as strong as the
well, he starts strong. The difference between it is that the Savage should have his dial. He gets stronger as he goes through the dial. The Professor Hulk wouldn't have that. He would. You might have even some Savage Banner clicks at the end there if he gets too mad that he reverts into Savage Banner.
Mm-hmm. Also, if I was to go crazy, a 4th version, which would be Bruce Banner with the same length of dial as all the Hulks, but whenever Bruce Banner takes damage, you immediately shift him, and he takes 1 damage.
That would be cool. He ignores all but 1 damage, but deal him 1 damage, then shift focus.
Immediately shift focus to another Hulk.
That's a cool idea.
And even give him outwit and probability control to represent how smart Banner is. Because he's even throwing perplex. Let's go crazy. All 3 crap stats across the entire dial. But when you damage him, he doesn't have those powers anymore. You got to go with another version of the Hulk. Maybe even not give perplex to the more crafty Hulk. Give him something to the lines of combat reflexes along with maybe toughness or invulnerable, not quite as tough, but a little bit more savvy in combat. I don't know. The Gray Hulk is the hardest one to design, beyond the shadow of a doubt. That stays on dial. But
I don't know. I'm not sure I agree, but there's to each own.
What do you think?
I agree. It's tricky with the Hulk because you really can't go and pick up a comic where Banner's just deciding to manifest different Hulks.
Yeah.
And I suppose that an argument could be made that you don't see too many comics in which Iron Man chooses to jump from one armor to the next, but it does happen occasionally. It can happen, and for what it's worth, we've never seen shit to focus on Iron Man, so I don't know if it really counts.
And this is before you go started. That's why I specifically referenced that series, because he was actively able to start telling those 3 Hulks how to divvy up his brain time.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to say.
No, I agree. I must admit, if I had to design a shifting focus Hulk, I'd probably go the lame conservative route and make a shifting focus version of green, fairly baseline Hulk. So I might have the version that is sort of the Savage Rage version, which is the all offense, very little defense version, which is all about the charging in, Battle Fury, big time numbers, and ideally he, much like Superman, can grab objects by just ripping them out of the ground and stuff like that. That's kind of the pure angry Savage Hulk. But then you could also have the Hulk that's defending Hulk. So much like Superman, he's just starting to sound like Superman, isn't it? Where he kind of defends his allies and ties people down. Maybe have some kind of plasticity power where he stands in the middle and keeps everyone busy. And that type of guy could also have Quake and plasticity for choice. And then I might also go with a Thunderclap Hulk, where it's kind of the ranged force blast and it's all about scattering people around, and combine that maybe with a half move, like leap climb as a free action, so he can stand people scattering and then jump after them, and that's kind of your battlefield manipulation, like formation breaking and lockdown type Hulk. And then after that, you maybe just have your sort of deep distance leap smash Hulk, where it's all about go as far as possible, Quake when you land and stuff. I don't know. I can see it both ways. I like what you're describing more. I would rather play with yours. But if you asked me to design it, I'd go the lame route.
It's the Dr. Doom all over again.
It is that.
It's almost like they pay me to do this kind of design stuff.
Yeah. No, your design's more fun, but the comic accuracy lover in me would have a hard time reconciling to the fact that it doesn't feel like most Hulk comics anyway.
Mm-hmm. Jay?
I'm kind of torn between both your guys' interpretations.
You'd have it's different versions of the Green Hulk, but one of them's gray.
Well, because you have, from a gameplay standpoint, you kind of want different aspects to him and different stuff that he can do, which can almost be more of a thing with different versions. Like, obviously, a Joe Fixit and a standard Hulk are not going to work the same way. And the fact that their strength level, their rage and strength levels do vary, so I don't know. I almost feel like you might want to do more of a Solomon Grundy version. With the multiple identities, where you pick a certain power or different whatever.
Right.
But if you're shifting focus, you're probably going to want to stay more with regular Hulk. So I think those are just different designs.
I do like the idea of having a banner thrown in, though, and I like the way you've described it. Sort of a banner that he gets thrown in, but he's not the easy target banner. Yeah, he doesn't do much combatively, but he's supportive, and he's not easy prey because he turns into another Hulk rather than just dying outright. I think that's a cool idea.
Oh, yeah. All right, and there's a follow-up question from Nathaniel: would a Hulk include a back-to-basics banner? If I was to do the banner mechanic, and again, I built this on the fly, so it's not like my Dr. Doom where I spent like a week building it. Like Tom said, here's our like what would we build for Worlds? Take a week to build on it. Like that took me a week to put that together. I just kind of came off this on the fly off the top of my head. I didn't even this dial design on it. I would consider possibly having each Hulk have a trait where they took a certain amount of damage. They had to revert to a banner at the same click, but at the same time, you can't force the requirement of having an extra character on the sideline, which makes that a very dangerous mechanic. So I would have to say no. But maybe, possibly, have it where they all have a stop click at the end, and if you happen to have that banner, then you have to revert to it. Otherwise, they're just dead. They have one click on top of banner, and then you revert to banner on that last click, whatever. That's up to you. That's not something I've put together in my head yet. That's another exercise that I don't know if I have the time for anymore. So, yeah. Anyway. David Brzezinski wants to know, how many points is Cthulhu, Tom?
Is he being hilarious, or is he actually wondering? Because
I think he's actually wondering, but David, before he does go over that, understand that this Cthulhu was created for another game, Heroclix, not necessarily based on any point value that's the same exact thing as Heroclix. It was also very unbalanced in the game that it came out in.
Yeah, he's 1,800 points, but I'm not sure if he had other playable starting lines because I never had to play him in Heroclix.
Yeah, he was an 1,800 point click, or you could build like 6 300-point teams to try to take him down. Spoiler alert, you couldn't. There was no way in heck you could win that scenario. It was ridiculous. Well, but of course it was a really cool looking figure.
He's Cthulhu.
That too, yeah. All right. But he does want to know, David wants to know, how do you guys feel about the new title character game element? I'm still on the early boats on it because it looks like we're going to get at best one per set. It's going to take a couple sets to find out where they're going with this. I personally do enjoy it, but I can understand it being a little daunting for some players. I don't know. Tom, what do you think of the title mechanic?
Meh. Not
Just
against
another
it.
thing to Tom.
Yeah, I'm not against it, but I'm also not excited to be like, ooh, what's the title character in the next set? I don't really care that much. So I guess I would have to say I'm neutral on it because I definitely don't have a single thing against it. I don't want to, because I'm not particularly excited, doesn't mean I'm unexcited. I just don't feel strongly.
All right, Jay?
I like the idea of what you can pull off with that sort of character in theory, but I feel like they're still working out the balance issues, where Deadpool is really good, but that effect when he KOs is so drastic. But then Doctor Strange, in comparison, feels less powerful, so he's less appealing, but he's also does not have that drastic of an effect when he KOs. I think they're still balancing the kinks on that one.
Yeah, I kind of wish that... Go ahead, Jay, sorry.
I was also saying I'm looking forward to more of them because it actually then makes an impact where there's actually more than one per keyword. And it actually makes sense to have the restriction of not more than one.
Yeah, in fact, I piggybacking off that, what I was going to say was that I wish they had more keywords. We still don't know what the Deadpools are supposed to be, but Doctor Strange only has 2. And I kind of wish that the title character was trying more to capture sort of an all-encompassing version of this character, so ideally you'd pack it with as many keywords as possible. That seems like it would suit the mechanic better. We're not seeing it, though, so whatever.
I think
Doctor Strange is from a very specific storyline, so it looks like he's very focused in that regard.
Right.
Whereas Deadpool, we don't know what he's supposed to have.
Yeah, true.
I think they're trying to keep them focused, and there's a hidden cost, I think, behind keywords as well. If they overdo it with the keywords, we end up having to overcost the characters, and I think they're trying to keep them more focused at first, but at the same time, because they're adding a lot to it, right?
Yeah, I just think that hurts the appeal in a way, because it really does mean that you're only building them in specific circumstances, and that it doesn't make the title character thing seem as powerful. In a way, I would almost like it if it was something like, title character pieces do not break non-generic theme teams or something. Like you could even if you went that far with it, I would still accept it as a thing to entice you to want to play them.
Yeah.
I'd also prefer it if they were more standard and not based on such specific storylines, because that kind of, it's weird. Like, why would the title character Doctor Strange only be from one specific storyline and be so focused as opposed to a more general version, like
Agreed.
the Deadpool is?
Agreed.
So I'm hoping in the future that it's more of a vague kind of thing and not so set on a specific storyline, because then it also makes me want to play that version less and want to play other vaguer versions more in a more casual setting, at least.
Agreed.
All right. Next up, Dr. Octopus 2099. Big fan of the Mandarin rings. She's been quite active, asking a ton of questions about them. I guess she's a big Mandarin fan. But she does want to know what the rules change to mind control. Is her Mento intensifier ring still good? And yes. My gosh, it's even better if anything. Mind control is that much more powerful.
In some ways I think of the mind control as a lateral move, because it's better in some ways, and you lose out of a few corner cases where it was really cool. So I certainly don't think you lose anything by it. That's what I would say.
Jay?
It's similarly differently good.
Still great. Awesome.
Lateral move.
Yeah.
I'm happy that new mind control cuts out corner cases of all the rules questions of, what if I mind control somebody and they use it once per game? What happens? Can I use the once per game as well? Or do I use my opponents once per game? And all those nonsense questions. I'm happy that it's been more streamlined.
These poker chips are the steps, and it kind of went, whoop. Step up from what it used to be. All right. Next up, Fabricio Granados wants to know, are the new horror Heroclix something I'm going to be building teams with? Yes. I know the second we open that Gravity Feed, me and Amber are going to build like 1,000 teams and just relive our days of Heroclix. I'm sure of it. I don't know. You guys excited?
Is there really that much? Is there much in modern? Because I can't think of anything. I don't really think there's any modern monster that's that good outside of Berserk as a support piece. What?
Venom Pool's pretty good.
Yeah, but he's not a piece you build around. He's a piece you add in more. There's no, like, I have to build with this piece and play around it sort of thing. It's more, you'll probably break the to play Venompool because he doesn't have so many.
Maybe now you won't have to. I'm excited for the horror pieces. We have no idea what to actually expect from them. I'm excited by the principle of the horror pieces.
Yeah. I can't. Well, I mean, you know what? It's funny. You mentioned Cthulhu. We have this big chain of colossal prizes around the corner. I'm
cool.
just saying, WizKids, you have the cast, you have the model, capitalize.
Yeah, and you can use it for bicep curls when you're not using it for the game because it's pretty heavy.
Or if you have somebody you don't particularly like and just accidentally drop it on their phone.
Yeah.
They're all...
The wrath of the old ones.
Fabricio does have a follow-up question as well, which actually kind of got my eyebrow. He did mention, are you surprised by the lack of shifting focus Captain America? But he added another one that I am surprised at, because I'm not so much surprised about Captain America. It's Iron Man. How did they miss shifting focus Iron Man? How much armor does this guy have to have before he's shifting focus?
Again, I think that speaks to our previous point, though, that they do seem to be taking the sort of the B-plussers for this set in general. I think Doctor Strange is maybe the exception to that because he certainly is an A-level piece, but I think Iron Man may come. I don't think it's any. We may yet have a Legend of Hank Pym or whatever set thing for Iron Man. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they just released a set of different Iron Man, a lot of resculpts, and put it all together with a shifting focus mechanic. That would not shock me.
Yeah. Jay?
I don't think Captain America actually needs a shifting focus, at least as much as other characters. But I guess that'll happen in conversation later when they made some pretty good ones in this set, and they don't have shifting focus. Iron Man does feel much more like that should be a thing, where he adapts on the fly depending on what his opponent's throwing at him. And he also has variations of if he's concentrating on offense or defense or other stuff. And as well as the fact that you want a smart one too, and then shifting focus helps to prevent point bloat by having that on a specific character. So it worked pretty well for him. I don't think it's really as suited to Captain America.
Awesome. All right. Just going to go one more quick scan through the chat just to make sure I didn't miss anything.
There's one more on Facebook.
What's that? What?
There's one more on Facebook.
Was it?
Since a while.
Did I miss one? I did.
You did.
But I already asked you guys. All right. Of all the figures spoiled from Avengers Defenders War, HC Realms, WizKids, Facebook, what are your top 3 desired figures? Worldbreaker, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, even though they're common. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I'll limit it to people that we've seen the dials for, even though Worldbreaker is definitely on the list spiritually. As far as dials we've seen, off the top of my head, I'm going to say Jessica Jones and Purple Man first, as surprising as that is for even me to say. And I think I'm still excited for Chairpool, as they're calling him. All right, Chair Devil. That's it.
Chair Devil. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 1 is Worldbreaker. I don't care what the title is because it has to be better than the last one. Number 2 is another Hulk, and that's the common one with the leaping Quake. Especially because he has just really good offenses the whole way through and good defense values. He's just.
Agreed.
I like, even though he's 80 points only, I feel like he has everything that he should. And I really, really, really like the 011 Captain America. The 50-point one with super Avengers leadership. And if I was playing at Canadian Nationals, which I'm not because I'm judging, but if I was, I would absolutely adore playing him with my old Avengers Quinjet team, just replacing this Captain America with the other one. Because pulling all those tokens would just be bonkers.
All right. Well, if there's nothing more, guys, I'm just trying to get through that back to that chat there. All right. Okay, there is one more that kind of snuck in there, and I don't know if we fielded this yet, but hopefully. Thoughts on any heavy hitters, especially with the nerf on hypersonic and super strength? Honestly, I think this is going to be the lightest nerf that we all complain about for the most. I'm seriously at that point where it's just like everybody's complaining so much. Super strength does knockback now. Get over it, because when you include hypersonic with super strength now, instead of doing the damage with the object, you now knock the guy away, which gives you some extra squares of safety distance. How is this a problem? Tom, your thoughts?
Well, it makes some figures less playable, but I must admit that I've always felt that hypersonic and super strength was a pretty nasty combination to begin with. So I'm from a game balance perspective, I actually don't mind the change, even if it does mean that a few pieces are going to have to stay in the long box.
Jake?
So what was the question exactly?
Thoughts on heavy hitters, especially with the nerf on hypersonic and super strength?
Yeah, competitively it doesn't matter as much because we weren't really seeing much hypersonic super strength instead of Jakeem being able to pick that combination, but giving him a slight nerf is okay, especially considering how versatile and good he already is. But I was of the opinion post rules change that I felt like there could be something changed to hypersonic itself to allow for combo super strength balance. Like, let's say you decrease your speed by a certain amount to balance out the fact that you're not going full speed because you're carrying something humongous. So, but I think it's overall fine. Although I am sad about Mary Marvel because anything to hurt her is just the worst and should not be allowed and illegal.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. There is one last one that snuck in there.
Okay.
Hail Hydra.
Hail Hydra.
Hail Hydra. 2 against 3, Jay.
Yep.
Get out.
Sorry, Jay. Way to not play along. Jay.
All right. Once again, guys, thank you guys for watching. Thank you, everybody who's watching in the archive. It was a lot of fun today. I miss you guys. I got to get into this more often. And, of course, I want to thank our sponsors over at MajesticCCG.com. Check them out at MajesticCCG.com/Apex-Insiders for $3 a month. You get access to the great minds in the Heroclix game, except for mine. But mine is a beautiful mind. I'm just butt nuts crazy. Who am I kidding? But $3 a month gets you some of the greats of Heroclix do contribute there and do pass on some really great knowledge. It's really worth taking a read there. Jay is also one of the great minds that's been including his fringe articles where you take a figure and you wonder, why am I not playing this guy? Because he's a little better than we give him credit for. In fact, after Jay wrote that article, the Wizard happened to show up in a top 8 somewhere. So
Coincidence?
eyes open. I don't know. I think Jay wrote that article, et cetera, et cetera. So, but yeah, so check them out, MajesticCCG.com/Apex-Insiders. And of course, how can we go without our friends, our longtime friends over at HCRealms.com? This is your source for all things Heroclix, guys. Check out the homepage where you're going to see all kinds of neat articles, including on a semi-regular basis, Jay's rules articles, though less frequently lately because rules aren't really been a thing on the rules team's mind lately. But of course, if you're looking for the conversation where things are coming up, check out the forums. Jay is a regular contributor to the Sets and Rumors threads, so keep an eye open on those. But get your rules discussion in here. Your rules questions will be solved at WizKids, but of course, check that out. You know what? Track your collection. Build your teams here in the units section. It is the best utility on the internet right now to track your collection and build your teams, and it doesn't cost you a cent, guys. HCRealms.com. The Rock page. Find out where your local Rock events are. That's how Jay and Tom found out about the Rock and Eternal Games down in Michigan. So, always keep your eye on that. Use the iTrader to trade. The chat, I swear, there's occasionally a person in there. But, of course, guys, while you're there, check out the shop section. Get some cool gear. put in the coupon code MARRIED for 10% off of your purchase. And a little bit gets kicked back to us as well. All right. But of course, guys, whether you're building for the rock, building for your nonsense, playing your game at the table, it's all practice. Practice is an important part of being better at this game because practice
Mix
Your
team
terrifying.
Cthulhu Have a good night, everybody.